Hey everyone, today we are going to listen to an article written by Frazer Andrade and published by the Herald Goa. The title is History of Benaulim's Holy Trinity Church and Nossa Senhora de Livramento. Benaulim, a village situated in Salçéte, South Goa, was one of the 9 comunidades in the taluka during the Portuguese regime. Located in the Mázilvaddo, a few miles away from the Igreja da Santíssima Batista, is Benaulim's yet another well-known parish church, Igreja da Santíssima Trindade, a capela chapel dedicated to the Holy Trinity and the Holy Souls existed at this spot before 1750. In accordance with a local tradition, a small chapel existed on the property of the Correia Meyrelles family. Later, as the Catholic population increased, a need to extend the existing chapel was felt. The Meyrelles family was hence approached. However, their poor economic condition didn't permit them to part away with little land which they possessed around the chapel. At this point, the Loiola Pereira family stepped in and volunteered to give the Correa family an equal area of land elsewhere in exchange for this land around the chapel. The Correa family agreed and hence the chapel was extended. The edifice previous to the present church displayed 2 marble slabs on its walls which contained remains of a Pereira ancestor and a Velo ancestor. Hence, it is clear that the chapel was semi-public even around 1783. The chapel was later handed over to the Archdiocese of Goa and affiliated to the Church of St. John the Baptist. It was extended several times and called the Capella de Nossa Senhora do Livramento Chapel of Our Lady of Deliverance. The chapel was raised to the status of a church in 1992 and sadly demolished to build a modern concrete structure in 2005. Devotion to Nossa Senhora del Livramento. The devotion to Our Lady of Deliverance (Nossa Senhora del Livramento) began at the Holy Trinity Chapel in 1924 when it was brought to the chapel from the residence of Santana Pereira in Mázilvaddo. The Feast of Our Lady is annually celebrated at the Holy Trinity Church on the third Sunday of November. However, if this day coincides with the feast of Christ the King, it is preponed to the second Sunday of November. Through the intercession of Nossa Senhora do Livramento, many would find lost/stolen articles. Those who gave false witnesses spoke the truth when brought to her. In the earlier times, lawyers would send the accused to pledge the truth before the statue of Our Lady in Benáulim. This would result in shivers of fright running down the spine of the accused. All this, among numerous other miracles, was responsible for attracting a huge number of devotees towards her. Outside the church, along the right, is a statue of Our Lady of Deliverance, which was set up in 1955 as part of the celebration of the Anno Mariano. As mentioned earlier, the statue of Our Lady was originally in the family oratory of Santana Pereira in Mázilvaddo. Mázilvaddo and Axona were native to Gaucars with surnames Pereira and Silva. Faithful would flock to their homes asking for favors and for thanksgiving. Many would make offerings of candles and oil. When the house fell into ruins after the death of the last descendant, villagers worried as to where to move the statue of Nossa Senhora do Livramento. The options were St. John the Baptist, Chapel of St. Anthony, and Chapel of the Holy Trinity. The first option was ruled out. The second option was led by a relative of Santana Pereira's family named Narciso Mesquita, who was backed by the support of the extended Pereira family. The third option was strongly considered since it was backed by both Silvas and Pereiras of Mázilvaddo. In 1924, when the statue of Our Lady was being brought to church by Deacon Jose Velo in a solemn procession led by Padre João Francisco Fernandes from Colva, it has been recorded that there was a thunderstorm accompanied by wind and heavy rain in January. Palm leaves fell off coconut trees, creating a carpeted path for the statue to be taken. It has been documented that one of the palm leaves, while it fell, bent in the form of an arch, welcoming the statue of Mother Mary into the Holy Trinity Chapel. The witnesses to these occurrences were awestruck. In the chapel, the statue was placed into a niche especially made for the occasion. In the altar of St. Philip Neri, located in the southern side where it remained until 1928. A small octagonal shrine was erected in place of Santana Pereira's house, using stones and wooden beams from the Pereira house, says Joyce Aguar y Carvalho from Colva. On the day of the Fama of Our Lady, the statue of her is taken to the little shrine, constructed at the site of the Pereira family house in a solemn procession where a Mass is celebrated in the evening. After Mass, the statue is taken back in a procession and is placed on the main altar of the Holy Trinity Church. The shrine was reconstructed in 1991 when it was blessed by the Vicar General, Reverend Monsignor Caetano da Cruz Fernandes. 2 days before the feast, the statue is brought down for public veneration. People of all faiths flock to this miraculous statue in Benauli. The evolution of feast day celebrations. I remember the brass band playing the Alvarado at the site of Santana's house at 5 a.m. on the feast day. Every evening during the novenas, after Mass at the Holy Trinity Chapel, a litany in honor of Our Lady was sung in Latin at the shrine built at the site of the Santana Pereira's house. Both these practices have sadly been discontinued for a long time, mentions Archie Nerona, a resident of Mázilvaddo. Conceição Mari Pereira from Mázilvaddo mentions, as children, we would rush to the shrine at 5 a.m. on the feast day when the brass band played the Alvarado. We would take sarnas for the Muscars musicians when we went. An alternative account of the statue's transfer. The locals in and around Benaulim mention an interesting story as to why the statue of Nossa Senhora do Livramento was brought to the Holy Trinity Church from the Santana Pereira's house. They say that the Pereira family was struck with extreme poverty, and that is the time a member of their family, in complete stress and frustration, plunged the statue into the village well, situated very close to their house. Tradition has it that the water from the well transformed into blood, and hence the image was moved to the chapel of the Holy Trinity in a solemn procession. End of article.